Battlefield 6 released in October of this year for PC through Steam and both the Xbox and PlayStation consoles. Retailing for $70 it has a main campaign that's going to take you about 6 hours to complete, along with its standard multiplayer options and modes, and the free-to-play Battle Royale mode. So, is Battlefield 6 worth playing on console? This review is going to answer that question. Let's begin, as we always do, by discussing the graphics and technical performance of Battlefield 6. The game looks incredible, which is pretty standard for DICE Battlefield games. The terrain, the character models, everything is just top-notch. Then there's the spectacle. Large-scale wars and battles, action set pieces, it's all in the main campaign. But what really stands out the most is how destructible buildings are. Throw a grenade in a house and the floor is liable to give way. Drive a tank through a pillar and the whole thing collapses. It's super fun and well done. For technical performance, Battlefield 6 runs and performs well on console, so don't worry about a repeat of Battlefield 2042. It seems that EA may have learned their lesson here, at least for this release. But the AI is still mostly incompetent. There's a few bugs in the main campaign, like poor enemy and ally pathfinding, and then I countered a few glitches where my companions would just constantly shoot their guns at nothing. It's not enough to ruin the experience, but it isn't perfect either. Then there's the online requirements. Even the single-player campaign required me to connect to the EA servers. I never had an issue connecting, even when booting from a quick connect after shutting my console down, but if you don't have internet or if it cuts in and out, you're probably going to have a bad time with Battlefield 6.
It's locked, defended. No, we made it. Hold on. Aircraft in a span losing altitude. 241 is hit. In a span can't recover. 241 is going down. Mayday.
As I said at the beginning of the review, the main campaign will take you about 5 to 6 hours to complete, which is very short, but the story is pretty good, although it could have used more time to explain the plot further. Battlefield 6 takes place a few years in the future, 2027-28, where a number of countries have left NATO to join the Pax Armada, which is a private military group that's going to be taking over security for the region. Rather than a smooth transition, Pax and NATO forces collide and it basically starts World War III. The story is told through the eyes of a single squad of soldiers who are central to the events that happen, but don't expect a satisfying conclusion to the story. This conflict is just an excuse to set up the multiplayer, and there isn't any real resolution. What hurts the narrative the most is the framing device the game uses. It jumps back and forth from the present to the past to fill in what's happening, but that also means that events are poorly explained, with things sort of just happening for big battles to occur. There's also no real memorable characters. You have gruff army man, gruff CIA operative man, and gruff sniper woman who all have gravelly voices, and there's a lot of like, hoorah. But most people don't play Battlefield games for the campaign, which is evidenced by the fact that you can select what you would like to install, with the option of not installing the main campaign at all in order to save space on your hard drive. So let's talk about the gameplay of Battlefield. I'll admit, I missed the old Battlefield games. Battlefield 1942, which came out in 2002, was incredible and exactly what I wanted in a World War II shooter at the time. It had massive maps, tons of players and bots, aircraft and tanks. It was pure chaos and loads of fun. New Battlefield games are just like fine. But if you played any of the Battlefield games over the past decade, Battlefield 6 will feel familiar to you. You have all the multiplayer modes you would expect with Conquest and all the other team modes. But everything just feels sort of small in Battlefield 6, and I miss the feeling of being thrown in an entire theater of war rather than just a tiny fraction of a single street or town. Apart from those standard modes, you have the Battle Royale mode, which is free to play and it's added to the launcher for everyone. Movement does feel faster in this game, and you can climb up to a lot of new areas or destroy buildings to eliminate enemies that are in cover, giving you a lot more options. Alright, let's go into the pros and cons of Battlefield 6. For the pros, the game looks great even on console, and it runs at a stable frame rate without having to sacrifice a lot of the graphics to do so. The main campaign had an interesting concept and it kept me engaged the entire time. The option to on-select things during the install saved me download time and install space, which is always appreciated. But for the cons, always online for a single-player campaign is terrible and should never be part of the game. I don't care how good your servers are, the requirement blocks people from enjoying the game that they paid for. Battlefield games really need to find their own identity again, apart from Call of Duty. They need something to set them apart so that it just doesn't feel like a COD clone. And that's it for another review. Unfortunately, I just didn't really have a lot to say about Battlefield 6. It's a good shooter and an alright Battlefield game, and just a standard multiplayer war shooter. So is it worth playing in 2026 for $70 US? Well, since it's currently on sale at the time of writing this review, only a few months after it's released, I would have to say no, it's not worth $70 US. This is a game that's going to be deeply discounted by the spring and summer as multiplayer numbers continue to drop and they try to entice people to keep playing or come back to it. If you want to check it out just for the single player campaign, I wouldn't pay more than $20 for it. And if you're on a budget for the multiplayer, you're likely going to get this pretty cheap in 6 months. I'm the Casual Console Gamer on YouTube, and I'll see you all in the next review.